Sup, everyone.
Sup, everyone. Sup, Rebecca and Carrie.
Sup, Carrie. Sup, Matthew. Matthew, I'm noticing your pink shirt again.
I know, right?
And I am so glad you wore it, because after you wore it last time, we got some feedback on that shirt.
What? We did. I totally missed the feedback. I need to go back.
Well, it's actually really important. I'm so glad you wore that today, because I made a note in my calendar. Our friend Darcy let us know that tomorrow is Pink Shirt Day in Canada. And what do you think that pink shirt stands for? Any guesses? Or is it ringing a bell at all right now?
I mean, for me, the first thought would be breast cancer awareness.
Okay, Carrie, any thoughts? Because you're like closer to Canada than we are. Any thoughts?
That might be their Alzheimer's awareness. I'm not sure.
So this is so cool, because we're all getting to learn together. I didn't know this either. So Darcy brought this to our attention. Darcy, who we hope to have on Straight Up Positive sometime, brought this to our attention that tomorrow is Anti-Bullying Day, and you wear pink for anti-bullying. So I'm so glad you wore that shirt. We didn't even plan this. Thank you. Well done.
I know, right? Well, it was the vibes. You were sending vibes my way, and I totally got it. We're in sync quite often.
This is getting scary. This is definitely getting scary. So I'm also noticing that, Matthew, we started our day super early this morning in Central Time, because we're both in Central, and that is not the shirt that you had on this morning. So,
no, I made a special change. Yeah. So the vibes, it was the connection. It was the connection.
So what were we doing at 7:30 this morning, Matthew?
Oh, we were rocking it on an RNP cert, which RNP, by the way, stands for Research and Policy in PAC. And it's awesome because we get this great opportunity to work with the state of Indiana on trying to make a change to their training programs for CNAs, those certified nursing assistants out there. And that's such an awesome thing to be a part of. Great team. Teepa's leading it. And so, if Teepa's leading it, there's definitely some serious awareness building and skill building going on with that dynamic. So that, yeah.
Awesome.
No other way to spend better.
I think we were on oh goodness, time flies when you're having fun. And last week I said that we were on a cert course, a certification course, and now we're on a certification course. And I wanted to bring in someone onto Straight Up Positive who is either fresh out of the certification course or actually in the mentoring process. So that's one of the guests that we have tonight, Jen Haak, who's having some technical difficulties. So you guys give some love in the comments below and send good vibes to Jen, because she's having trouble with connectivity, but she's going to come back and she's going to share with you, because Matthew and I could talk about it, Carrie could talk about it, Teepa can talk about it, the whole PAC team can talk about what it's like to be on a certification course, those 3-day virtual courses, or we could talk about what the mentoring experience is like. But we wanted to have someone come in who is literally living it. And I will tell you, sneak peek, Jen actually had a mentoring call today before this. So she is fresh in the mentoring experience, and she's going to get to share with all of you out there really what it's like. So definitely stay tuned for Jen. And you found some gems that you wanted to bring on the show. Tell us who you have on tonight.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit ago about connections and being connected, right? And one awesome thing about PAC is that they so support and totally try to get folks to connect. And a lot of our certified community, either through the certified community home or Facebook page, or through going to the website and finding people in their area, have found ways to connect with other certified folks that are close to them, or even in distances, in this case, to go out there and do something different or create something that is really needed. And so we have Gene and Stacey with us tonight. Come on, Gene and Stacey. Welcome to SUP.
Welcome to SUP, ladies.
Sup, everybody.
These two amazing ladies have connected to start something that really is important. And before we get into that, though, because I'm super excited for you guys to share this, I want to know a little bit. Well, I have the pleasure of knowing you both, but our viewers, our folks who are watching tonight, some of them maybe haven't seen you before, or they have, but they haven't heard too much about you guys. So tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you guys do out there in the world using your certifications that you've gotten through PAC, and helping all of those folks out there when it comes to working with our loved ones who are living with brain change.
Okay, Jeanne, you go first.
All right. Well, I'm Jeanne, and I live in the Midwest. I'm also on Central Time, so I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And what I do with my certification, I like to think of it as everyday life. So I'm using it in everyday life a lot, either in my community, at my part-time job, which is a community of women religious, lots and lots of older women. And also I use my consulting certification more than I do my training certification, not just because of COVID, but because I think I really like consulting with families. I really find I feel like I'm really making a difference with that. How about you, Staci?
So I'm just me. I live in Atlanta. Disclosure is I am a mentor for PAC, and I have gone through several trainings. I currently own a business in Atlanta called Graceful Journey, where I'm a dementia care specialist and an end of life doula, which is why Jeanne and I are on today. How do I use my PAC skills? Every day, I am always PPAing somebody. I am always mindful of my space before I come towards somebody. Connection has always been important to me, and through PAC, it's just taken on a different meaning. And so that's how I use it. And Jeanne and I use it every time we record a podcast. We're always PPAing with our guest beforehand.
And each other, because I'm head first and Stacy's heart first. So we both need that before we start.
Totally. And it's funny how you guys mentioned that compliment. So Jeanne being head first and Stacy being heart first reminds me of me and somebody else that I work with that has something kind of similar. So, and she points that out quite often about how we complement each other, which is so true. So such an amazing duo. And I love this piece about how you're already starting to kind of talk about this connection that you guys formed and some of what you're doing with it. But before we get into that, how did this happen? How did this connection between you two occur to start this podcast that we'll talk about here in a minute? But I'm really curious, where did that connection start?
So this is funny, Matthew, because we didn't remember. We didn't remember how it actually happens. You know how the best of friends, you don't know the moment? And that's kind of what happened with the two of us. But I remembered today, we saw each other online. I knew she was an end of life doula. I'm an end of life navigator. We were like moths at the fire a little bit. And then one of us suggested that we look into kind of a thanatology book club kind of thing. And we started studying really around books, around thanatology, which is the study of death and dying. And I think it was just kind of a little COVID project for us. And one day somebody said, we should really start a podcast.
Let me say that somebody was Jeanne. Okay, let's just point that out. The study around books is Jeanne. Okay, let's give credit where credit is due.
I'm an idea person. How's that?
That's so cool. So So you guys got together because there were similarities there, right? You both are helping folks at that transition period of their life, and how important that is to have that support, to have somebody there who can help you through one of the toughest things that any of us can face, right? No matter how head first you are, no matter how heart first you are, it's just tough. And so you guys are out there, you're doing this separately, but you notice, ooh, we do the same thing here. And hey, why don't we start looking into what we can do with this? And this book club idea came about, or Jean's idea, the book club came about. And so you guys connect on that part, which is so cool. Because again, we love the connections. We love to see these connections form, especially, on the certified community homepage, on Facebook, or anywhere within PAC, because we love the connection piece, right? It's relationships definitely is so important to us. And that's a big part of building relationships. So you guys get together and you're talking about this thing. And where does podcast come? I mean, someone said podcast, but when did it really kick off? When was it like, okay, yeah, we're doing it. We're doing the podcast. And how did that unfold to become what we know now today as Death Unfiltered?
Well, once again, I go to Jeanne. She's like, hey, what do you think about a podcast? And I was like, okay. And she said, are you sure? Because I have no podcast experience, none whatsoever. I'm technically challenged. And she said, are you sure you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, I'm the kind of person that'll jump in. And then later I'll say, oh, what did I just do? Or learn on the job. And so, because Jeanne is the head person, she did mention it. And she's like, oh, yeah, I have friends. And Jeanne researched it and got some ideas. And then we brainstormed about, okay, what's the format going to look like? What are we going to talk about? And, just like working with someone with dementia, it's ever changing. And so what we do now is for 2 weeks of the month on our podcast, we have conversations between ourselves about topics people won't have in their homes. And the other 2 weeks, we interview individuals that want to share their end of life experience with us that they have had with their loved one.
And I think we have to constantly say to each other, yep, we're in over our heads and we know it. And just keep doing it anyway. Mm-hmm. We just keep doing it.
Yeah, it's that whole idea of you found something that was a need. And that need needed to be met, because out there, how much do you hear of this? How much do you see of this process? It could be so guarded and hidden and shrouded at times, because it is a very delicate situation. But it's a great conversation, something to have to give people that exposure, because it's going to happen. And we're all going to have those moments where we need to face that fact that we have a loved one who is passing or who needs that. And what a great way to use these PAC skills and all the other skills that you guys have formed and sharpened those tools over the years of your experiences of doing just what you were before this. Mm-hmm. And so looking at that, how it was before when you guys were doing things separately, and now that this duo has formed, what differences do you guys even just notice in yourselves as a trainer, as a coach, as a consultant, in your PAC skills and other skills that have kind of come from this partnership that you formed and this going back and forth and supporting each other in this?
I feel like I'm more confident. So there's something about knowing that Staci's standing right behind me and that I can text her and say, whoa, in over my head, or wow, if I'm working a death, I can say to Staci, is this ever going to happen? Or here's where I'm at. And there's always something that comes back that is soothing and calming for me.
And for me, it's that I'm not alone. There's someone else who understands the language, and that is so comforting, whether it's pack language or end of life language. They kind of come together for us. It's just so nice to have that other person there, to know that you're not going crazy, that this is realistic, to share that end of life story with, that you can't always share with your neighbor because they think you're crazy. So it's really nice to have a partner to share the experience of being an end of life doula with.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and Matthew, I want to challenge you for just a second, if
Oh,
I
yeah.
may.
Yeah.
At one point when you were talking about it being a really hard thing. The conversation around death, it's inevitable, but it's hard. And I would say that I don't believe it's hard. For me, it's like drinking a glass of water sometimes. It's just easy for me to know what to do, to make mistakes and be okay with it. And that part can sometimes get really lonely because people have an impression about what death workers are like. And Staci knows the truth. And that's really, we wouldn't be in this work if we felt like it was hard, I think.
Yeah,
Would you think so,
what a
Staci?
great point. That's for sure. Just that piece of how, you know, and this is looking at two different perspectives. Somebody who has helped and supported a lot of folks through this process, and see, hey, this isn't a hard conversation. This is something that we want to help you feel more comfortable with, and see that it's not something you need to hide from or feel like you can't talk about. But then on the outside, folks who don't normally do this, don't normally even think about it. I mean, realistically, how many folks are thinking, oh, probably in about a week or so, I know my grandma's going to start dying. And so we're going to have to deal with this. So I'll be prepared for it. Or does it come like, boom, guess what? Grandma is passing, and it's time to talk about this. And so having somebody who has that comfort level and can help somebody feel comfortable as much as they can about that losing a loved one. And then going back to what you guys were saying before about how you're both a support for each other in different situations. You can turn to each other and you can talk to each other about what's going on, and you have those language pieces that are similar, and you have that person that you can reflect things off of and feel that return is so awesome. And sometimes so many of us don't have that, especially if we're out there trying to support others, trying to do a business, trying to do something. We might be doing it by ourselves, but that team piece, doing it together and supporting each other in that together, how that can be so much more comforting and help you feel more confident and able to do that even more so. That's so awesome. And I'm sorry, Jeanne, you were about to say something before I threw that
Well,
out there.
the podcast would never be in the world if each of us individually were wanting to start a podcast. Nope.
Right. Yeah. So you guys come together, you create a podcast, and you title it Death Unfiltered. And we're talking about different stories. We have people coming on. You guys are talking with those folks who are sharing their end of life experience. And then we have episodes where you guys are talking back and forth about experiences that you've had. And so what are you seeing out there since you've created the podcast and you got it going? What are you seeing happening with people listening or responses back to what you guys have done with this so far?
Go ahead, Jeanne. But before I go to Jeanne, let me just say we've gotten positive responses. We've had 200 downloads, and we've only been out there. This week will be 6 weeks. I feel like there is a positive energy about it. And even if that's just coming from us, there is a positive energy about the end of life. And I think it's become stronger for Jeanne and I, even though it was already there. It's kind of like manifested. And so even if it is the two of us that are more excited about the end of life, that's okay because our energy spreads. And I also feel like we have given individuals space to tell their story that might never have been heard. And we have no idea what the lasting effects of that are. And when other people hear it, what does that do for them?
Yeah. So that whole part of giving people a space to feel comfortable to share out, and how that can be a huge part of just the grieving process. And even after, I mean, how easy is it for folks once the person's gone? How easy is it for folks to grieve afterwards, or feel like I should still be grieving? Or how long do I grieve? Or is this normal? I mean, should I be thinking about this every day? I mean, they're gone now, right? But then backing up to the process up to, and Jeanne, you had kind of mentioned this before about how long could this take? I mean, how long of a process? And oh my gosh, the support that's needed for somebody going through that, especially because it can drag out. It can take longer than maybe what's predicted in the beginning from a doctor. And all of what that does to a person as they're going through that process, but giving them this space to share, or giving them that support, giving them something to listen to, other people going through something similar, and that feeling of, I'm not alone. Other people are going through this too, and how that can help.
I think we interviewed another PAC trainer, Jane Jarman, and she was our first interview on the podcast. We had done other interviews, but she's the one we sent out there first. And I feel like that was so incredibly powerful for Jane as that experience, even though it's been decades since the loss. And in that experience, I believe that's what we're seeing in people who are downloading and commenting and talking about it. I had an experience like that, or this made me remember. So there's a lot of kind of pulling back into history and bringing it forward into your heart today that I wasn't anticipating as much.
And Jeanne and I just recorded a podcast a couple of days ago talking about just what you were talking about, Matthew. The process of dying is different than a loss. And so what you were mentioning was, how do people deal with the loss, right?
Mm-hmm.
The death has occurred. Now what? And that's a big piece. Now what? And in our occupations, we help individuals and families create that foundation to hopefully move forward in a positive way. But grief comes when it comes. And sometimes you're not prepared for it. And so it's best to just breathe into it, because it's going to come when it's least expected. That's what grief is. And back to your point, Matthew, people always say, oh, it's been 6 months, time to go, grieving's over. Is it ever over? So
Yeah. And accepting that part of it doesn't have to be. You can still be grieving the loss of somebody, and it's okay. It's okay to be still grieving the loss of somebody, and how to do that in a healthy way too, because we do know sometimes that grieving process, depending on where we let it go, could take a bad turn. But having folks like you guys to support somebody and develop that healthy structure, or that way, that plan of where do we go from here now that we've had the loss, and then also seeing other people going through the same thing or similar things, and what they're doing and how it's going for them, can give them that support that they need to do this in a way that is still healthy for them, but still be grieving. Because it, like you said, it's not, okay, we lost him 6 months ago, that's it, we should be done, right?
Well, and it's interesting too, because there are a lot of grief podcasts everywhere. There are lots of grief casts and grief podcasts, but there aren't a lot talking about death. And we wanted to set ourselves apart from that grief world and kind of delineate ourselves from that. And you can't. You can't, because the threads just weave through it all.
But Jean, we do talk a lot about the process. And sure, within that process, there is grief. And so, yes, I would agree with you, but we're different because we talk about the process and how to make it meaningful and what it's really like when it's happening. So,
Yep.
So you guys have this podcast going. You've got quite a few. So how many podcasts have you guys put out there so far? You have a number?
I think we're dropping 6 on Friday.
So
Thursday or Friday.
6 Friday, and you've done quite a few before this.
Well, we've recorded, sometimes we just record really sloppy ones and they never see the light of day. Sometimes we're interviewing people, and internet, like is always the kind of sore spot, because I don't want to put anything out that has scratchy internet, because I want the guests to be able to be shown in, I want the voice to be heard. So we've maybe done 20. Lots of throwaways, but and editing is hard. Oh, it's hard, and it's time consuming, and we're learning a lot.
Yeah, so you guys are noticing that challenge of getting something that is good and will really help to speak to what you want to happen in this podcast episode, and then that editing piece. And I tell you, a shout out to our Gelman, our Carrie, who does a lot of editing too and helps out a lot with that when it comes to PAC. And oh my gosh, I do not envy her one bit, because you're right, editing can be so, looking at just all that recording and where to cut and and how to put this together so it transitions smoothly. I can only imagine how much of a challenge that is.
It's like making a really chunky soup, and then by the time you've edited it, it's like a big puree, and then I need to separate it again to make sure it's okay, and then I send it to Staci, and it sounds great to Staci, and I'm still trying to pull out the cauliflower out of the vegetable soup. So it really is kind of a messy thing, and totally worth it.
Yeah.
Jean does our editing, period. I told you I was technically challenged, and I am. And it's not my forte, but Jean's like, I've worked in radio, I've done some editing, but I think really doing this podcast has been different. A whole different learning curve.
Yeah.
And we've both been on our own learning curve navigating this process.
Yeah.
So a lot of things, it's that whole, okay, what are the 2 things we're liking about what we're doing, and what's the one thing we want to change, and how can we keep changing and keeping this going and improving what we can, and at least finding the good of it. So it's just so amazing, and I thank you guys so much. I'm wondering if you could share with us a tip for all those folks out there who are curious about, I really want to start a podcast. I love this idea. I've always wanted to try this. I wanted to go out there and do this. What's one thing that you would share out to those folks out there of what they could try, or some advice on how to help them get started with doing something like this?
I would say do it with a partner. I can't imagine doing a podcast by myself unless I had an editing team, of this team, of that team. Like, I would need all support. I would say have a partner, because it's so much fun with a partner. And you learn so much about yourself and about the other person. And the key word I would say is you have to be flexible. You have to be flexible in the way you think it's going to turn out, the way you think it's going to go. That's the word I would say, flexibility.
I would say I had a former student of mine, is a really creative woman, and she gets an idea and she throws it out in the world. And then if it doesn't stick, she just does something else. She just tries something else. And she gave me that advice a few years ago. And I didn't realize how scary that would be. But I feel like that's exactly what we did. Let's just send it out there. If it doesn't work, we tried it and we can do something else. But the thing is it's working. People are really responding to it. So.
Yeah, 20, now getting ready to be 26 episodes later. Look where you guys are at, and I applaud you guys for all your hard work and love this connection, love what you guys have done, and showing that example of when you get connected with somebody else, what that can do, how powerful that can be. So thank you guys so much for sharing.
Could I say something about just the whole idea of a pack partnership? Because I know you had mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
So Staci and I don't do everything together. We do things with other pack folks. And the opportunity is there for that to happen. And I just want to encourage everybody to try it, because it's not marriage. It's really just trying it. And maybe I want to work on assessments with someone. So then I grab somebody I resonate with and say, hey, let's do this together. And with this experience that I've had with Staci, I will not hesitate doing that again.
Yeah, what a great point. It's that, again, going back to trying something out. Don't be scared to try something out, because through any experience, you could always find something that was good and then something that you might want to do differently next time. But how would you ever know if you didn't?
Mm-hmm.
How would you ever, how would anything ever have come about? Any great idea or amazing podcast or awesome show or organization that helps support folks who are caring for those living with dementia and those who care for them. Geez, what would have happened if Teepa never decided to continue working down that path and just go back to occupational therapy and stick with that? What would have been missed? Oh my gosh. So looking at the fact that the more you get out of that comfort zone and you just try something, what amazing things are possible. That's so awesome.
And I love how you guys brought up that different people having different skill sets and different strengths. That is certainly something that we talk a lot about within our team. And again, Matthew mentioned Carrie and her editing and all the great things that she does behind the scene. Couldn't do SUP without her. So thanks for bringing up that teamwork piece, because that's all what we're about at PAC, is relationships and working together to make change for those living with dementia. So thank you guys for being on here. Thanks for sharing your story. And I don't know about the rest of you that are watching, but I'm definitely gonna check out those 6 dropped episodes this week. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
thank you so much.
And they're short.
Oh,
They're short. They're only 20 minutes.
Ooh, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
20 minutes, that's good.
No one wants to hear us longer than that. If you can't say
Well,
in 20 minutes, get off.
You know what, Staci, that's a great point. No one wants to hear us more than 20 minutes either, but that's why we have to bring on great people like you.
All right, you guys.
Great people.
You guys have a good one.
Thanks, Staci. Thanks, Jeanne.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Let's see if Jen can get her camera up. Jen, welcome to SUP.
Thank you.
Jen has had an experience that we say in PAC that her amygdala has gone here, but she's working to bring it back down here because of connectivity issues. But you are here, and we are so happy to have you here. And I have to tell you that I told your original mentor, Beth Nolan, that you were going to be on tonight so that she could give you some love. So Beth is watching. I saw her making some comments, and I know she's so proud of you because she just got to be your mentor when you went through trainer certification.
Yep.
So I said at the beginning of the show, we could talk about this, we could talk about what it's like, but hearing from someone like you who you just graduated trainer and now you're becoming a PAC certified coach. So how'd you get to where you are today, Jen?
Lots of experiences, and tripping up probably really helped me get to this kind of assured place that I feel like I know where I'm headed and where I want to go. I had some experiences working at community mental health, where I learned a lot about how to support individuals with mental illness and developmental disabilities. And I also have some lived experience. My dad had Lewy body dementia. And so that was about 9 years of a journey with him and going through all that that brings. And I really saw how my mental health experience really fit nicely with some of the things we were dealing with as a family as we walked through that dementia. And so this like perfect opportunity at Life Circles popped up for me just at the right time to kind of give me this opportunity to reboot my professional career and kind of jump into dementia care and use those experiences that I've had to really been challenging for me and fun for me, and hoping that it helps others too.
I love that you say it's been fun for you and challenging for you, but you kind of feel like you've gotten to this place for such a time as this. And you mentioned Life Circles. So can you tell us about Life Circles?
Yep, Life Circles is a PACE program, and PACE stands for Program for All-Inclusive Care of the Elderly. So we basically provide everything a person would need who's aging and having some complex medical concerns or care needs at home. We can kind of surround the family, surround that person, and provide that in-home care if that's their goal to stay at home. So we're kind of like a one-stop shop. We've got the medical provider, the nursing, the OT, the PT, dietitians, social workers, and you name it, we got it. And if you have a problem, we can help you with it.
And you're in Michigan, right? So this great program is in...
Yeah. So we're like right over here or this way. I don't know how it works on the camera, but we're over on the west side by Lake Michigan.
So I have to ask, and this was not part of our discussion, but this is something that it seems like Michiganders all do. Is that a thing? Like, can you tell me more about that? And I promise I'll get back to the topic.
Yeah, I think, does this look like Michigan? This is how we just like describe where you live, because this is how Michigan is shaped. I don't know much about the UP because I'm not a Youper, but I could tell you where a lot of cities are on my hand, just that way.
I love that. So visual cues. Teepa talks about visual cues a lot. So yeah, there you go. I love that. So I just love that. That's a trend that I see with all Michiganders. So, okay, I digress, but let's get back to you. So you working with Life Circles, your organization said, we are going to kind of move forward this culture change thing. And so they sent yourself and another colleague to train.
Yeah, my supervisor was certified. Dr. Elam was certified years ago, and she has continued to renew her certification. And so we're just adding to the whatever a good metaphor would be there.
So you're laying on the PAC pieces, and so you've got trainer, and I know you've got some big plans that actually start next week for rolling out some of this material, this PAC material with your teams. But tell us about the certification process itself, because that's what I want you to share with our viewers who are maybe thinking about going to a course, or I don't know, just curious. Tell us about the actual certification experience, the course online, and what that was like for you.
Okay. So I loved it. I was so impressed at how the virtual experience was so engaging. You know, you kind of are bummed because you can't be in person during a pandemic, but I was just really shocked at how there's breakout rooms to practice skills that's with smaller folk, like a smaller group of people. So you're not like practicing something new in front of 40 people, you know, you're practicing something new in front of like 4 or 5 people. And you kind of get to learn by watching other people try too. So there's lots of different learning styles that get targeted for these trainings, and it's so dang practical. I mean, it makes really good sense for working with humans, whether they're aging abnormally or normally, whoever they are. It's just really good people skills. And I really like the follow-up afterwards. So it's not just a training online for a few days. There's actually follow-up work where you build relationship with a mentor and you get to get feedback about what you're doing and what you're wanting to work on for the next phone call that we have. And it just seems like you don't get left on a high from a training and then it just kind of, dissolves. You get to still keep it up, and it helps you sustain those new skills you're trying to learn.
So hold up. I'm going to pull us back for a second because you said something that may have caught some people's attention. Do you mean to tell me that when you're on the course, you have to practice in front of other people?
Yeah.
You're not just listening to Teepa talk?
No, it's super interactive.
What?
Yeah, this isn't like a training where you could fold your laundry or iron your clothes. Like, you got to really pay attention.
Yeah, you got to pay attention and you're actually practicing some skills, right? That's what I think is so awesome about Teepa and all that she does in the Packiverse is just that it's not just about talking about it. We're doing it. So you were at the trainer course and you actually had to practice in front of other to-be trainers with these pack training skills. And so for you, you're more of a let's do it. I'm more of a let's see it done. So for you, it might not have been too uncomfortable jumping in and doing that. Did you notice other people on your course and how they responded to that experience? And did they feel supported, or what was that like for everyone, including yourself?
It is such a supportive environment. I think about when toddlers are learning how to walk, we kind of like baby proof the place so that if they fall, they won't get hurt. And it kind of feels like that in your breakout rooms. I mean, they don't treat you like babies, but it is a respectful, kind, nurturing environment where like make mistakes. Like, don't try to get it perfect the first time. Don't put that kind of pressure on yourself. Like, you're trying something brand new. Expect to fall. Expect to not know what to say or what to do next. I can remember one training. I think Catherine was one of the people in my breakout room, and she was like role playing with me, and I was just like, my mind just like went blank, and I'm usually not like a blank minder when I get my amygdala engaged. Usually something comes out, and I was like, that was the best learning experience to know, like, I just had a gem state change. Like, I just had a brain change because I got stressed out. Like, and what a safe environment to be able to practice that and learn that sort of awareness about myself. Like, that kind of stuff makes us powerhouses when we're out there helping people with dementia and helping care partners. It's way cool to practice in these safe environments and then feel like we've got the confidence to, I mean, I'm still going to screw up. I'm definitely sure of that, but to have the confidence to at least know where I want to start.
Oh, I love that. I love that analogy of like a toddler proofing, just that it's this idea that we want you to succeed, just like a parent wants that child to learn to walk. I mean, we want folks to learn these new skills, and we don't want it to be so traumatic that
you don't get back up.
Never try again. Exactly. And so thank you for sharing that. I'm glad that that's the way, we always hope that that's the way it feels, but that trying those new skills is actually what's going to help us improve. And, even Teepa tells us all the time, even from our mistakes, we're all going to learn from it. There is something for all of us to learn. And so the courses, go ahead, Jen.
I just think I learn more from mistakes. So things stick with me better. So I'm perfectly fine with making mistakes. And I think if you can have that sort of mindset, there's just this freedom that comes with learning something new. And it is so fun. And even for the people who try really hard to do it right the first time, by the end, you start to see they're embracing that whole process too. And it's relaxed and people are having fun and you're getting used to people too. So relationships are forming. It is a really nice method for teaching new skills.
I love it. So you talked about the course and how you practice new skills, and you also talked about connecting with other people on the course. I'm wondering, did you have any follow-up with anyone that you took the course with?
I haven't. I took a course. It was in Pennsylvania for the training, and I don't know if they've had their 8-week get together yet. So I was like kind of an add-on for my training
right.
for the trainers. In the coaching training, I haven't followed up with anybody yet either, except for you. You're my mentor.
Oh, me. You've had some follow-up with me. And you keep using this word mentoring. So tell someone who has never learned about a certification course, what is this thing you keep talking about? I just thought I went 3 days online and that was it. I'm certified. But that's not actually correct, right?
Right. So we get some homework assignments where we practice like some strategies, positive approach to care techniques, and we videotape it and we send it into our mentors, and then we get a chance to be coached so that we can get feedback and that we can kind of explore for ourselves, like what we did well and what we need to focus on the next time around.
Ooh, and so how does that feel when you are in that coaching experience? Like, you're a much more moldable person. Some of us little perfectionists are, oh, that's so hard for us. So any thoughts on what that's like for someone in the shoes of being mentored in that way?
I think it's a really fun experience. I think, I'm practicing a lot with my own kids because I don't have a lot of access to the participants in our program right now due to COVID. And so, especially the younger the kid, the more like not going according to the script is what's going to happen. So just learning that way has been really fun, and trying to figure out like what next step should I take if she won't reach out her hand to me? Like, what am I supposed to do? So just these little situations that get engineered really for learning in the privacy of my own home. Super cool.
That's awful convenient. And you get to use your family and bring them in, right?
Yeah, like I fed my whole family with hand under hand. I've learned I'm not so great with really big hands and lefties, but I'm working on it. So
you've been helping assist with eating with some of your family members. So it's not just for someone living with dementia. You're actually practicing those skills with your family. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to get really good with my skill fingers.
Jen, you're awesome. So I have a question about one of the things I love to ask folks on Straight Up Positive is about those skills that you learn from the course. So there's this line of demarcation at the course that you were different from before the course and after the course. Any experiences of changes in your practice or what you've been able to roll out to your teams with your new PAC skills?
I think one of the biggest aha moments for me was closed circuit and open circuit interactions. Like closed circuit is when I do it to myself. So I know when it's going to start, I know when it's going to end, I know how hard it's going to be or light it's going to be. Open is when someone else is like touching me or helping me with something. There's like some surprise to that. And so hand under hand really helps create this closed circuit interaction for somebody. So when we're helping them with food, they're helping too. So like neurologically, their brain is following because they're doing the same movements that they're used to doing. And so it just makes me think, like, for my dad, we would oftentimes go to Captain Sundays to get him a Snickers flurry. And no matter like how confused or disoriented this man was, he could always tell when it was a mini flurry and not a medium flurry. And so it's like so funny. We had to be careful because of the diabetes. We didn't, we got to be careful, but we can still have fun with food. So if I could have had hand under hand for those visits, I think he would have really enjoyed his flurries better, because we're basically dive bombing him. And as dementia progresses, like his vision is getting more tunnel, and that spoon is probably showing up like right about here. And so one thing for me for sure is like paying attention to how I approach somebody and when do they see me? When am I in their personal space? Because I don't want to start hurdle. So that's been a big eye opener for me, because I never really thought about interactions that way before, and the power of like having them participate in personal care makes such good sense.
So yeah, so you have this application, Jen, to not only this aha moment for yourself, but also you're thinking back to experiences that you had with your dad that could have been different, even though he loved that. Are you calling it a flurry?
Snickers flurry.
Snickers flurry. He loved it and he loved you. Yet there might have been these moments of elevated amygdala because awareness of his visual changes and this idea of feeding someone.
Yeah, the seagull flying in like with ice cream, instead of like him being more a part of that, it just makes good sense.
Yeah, so I'm curious so you've had that aha, and now you're a PAC certified independent trainer, and next week, you get to start rolling this information out to your staff. So I'm curious, what kind of ahas do you suspect are going to happen with your team members?
Well, I'm hoping that the verbal, visual, permission kind of things we do first before we go in for touch will be a big highlight for staff, that they're going to make sure that visual and that they see me and hear me before I'm getting too close. I think
so what is it Teepa says, don't touch without first
when we touch first, it feels like this, right? So we want to make sure we're getting visual, verbal permission before we go in for touch. And depending on the gem state, that might change how close I need to get for them to even see me, right? So just paying attention to those things. Another big thing is just paying attention to our different personality traits and our different learning styles, and paying attention to how we can support each other. When I think about the gem states, we always think about folks living with dementia, but it's about people. And when we get stressed and our brain has changes, like we need support too. So I'm hoping as an agency, like gem states, like we can support each other so we can have more sapphire moments as staff too.
That's awesome. So, and because you even talked about an experience that you had where you went, did you say emerald or amber, in that experience where you're just, so yeah, so those gem states are for all of us, not just someone living with dementia. And I have to put in a plug right now, I'm sorry, but our conference this year in November is actually all about gem states and how all of us experience various gem states, and that all gems can shine with the right support and the right care. So you really just set me up. I couldn't pass up the opportunity. I had to talk about conference. And many of you probably got to save the date in your email today. So put that on your calendar. Hopefully we'll see you there. Just really that focus on, yes, gem states for someone living with dementia, but also gem states for us. And so being aware of that. And we watched a video today, Jen. I just want to kind of, as we wrap up, start to talk about this. We watched a video where you were actually practicing PPA with your daughter, Cora, which, what a doll. I mean, so cute. And you said that even in how old is she?
3.
She's 3 years old. And she doesn't know that she's helping mommy make silly videos. She just knows suddenly you're trying this thing with her. But you talked about a moment where you crossed a point in her space where you noticed a change with her. You noticed her gem state change. And so you stopped. Can you talk about that experience that we just talked about today on your mentoring call?
Yeah. So like I did my whole Cora, mommy, and kind of offered the hand, and I wasn't getting any response. And so I kind of moved a little closer. And as I did that, I noticed like face got covered up and like noises, like get out of my space kind of noises. And as I backed it up, hands came back down. So it was very interesting. I could feel where the threshold was of where I could be, like what permission she was giving me based on how she was responding to where I was. And it took a little bit longer for her to accept my hand. But that's okay. You know, sometimes we got to slow our roll down a little bit and just go slower, and we'll get there a lot faster.
Exactly. And you talked about that experience about, I mean, pre-pack, you would have just probably, you wouldn't have ever thought about approaching her that way or having an awareness of her response to you. So even in parenting, you're noticing a different skill set. That's so
Yeah.
cool, Jen.
And I would have just escalated her, right? Because I was just trying to get a task done and just moved right in and just not really paid attention to these signs. And when I slowed it down and backed it up and gave her more choice in how that interaction looked, we didn't escalate.
That's awesome. You didn't escalate. That's awesome. So any final words of advice or wisdom for someone who might be considering coming to a PAC certification course?
I think my advice would be just embrace this learning process, embrace this really safe environment where you get to try something new, and don't put this perfection hat on, because then you won't have fun. Like, just go in knowing that I'm at a different stage than the trainers and the mentors. Like, they've been doing this a lot longer, so I can't expect to look like them first round. So just take it slow and just embrace where you're at in the journey, in the process, because this process is just as important as becoming a master of your craft, right? So without this process, we won't get better. So this process is a really cool place to be. So that's what I would say. Sign up for some PAC courses. They're so fun.
So you got to take that first step in order to get to that next level. And so, yeah, to be master of your craft, or even to be proficient at your craft, or even to be better at your craft. Yeah, it's taking that next step, and sometimes stepping out of our comfort zone. And I mean, we can't be all perfect like Matthew, my dear co-host here. So great wisdom, Jen. You aren't going to be like Teepa Snow. Just because you come to the course, you're not going to be Teepa's mini me, but you're going to be a better you, right?
Right. Although I wouldn't mind being more like Teepa. She's super great. I'm a big fangirl.
Oh, yeah, no, we all are for sure. Matthew, how can folks find out about future courses?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, Rebecca. And, you know, just because I saw you throw that shout out to the conference, I wanted to show the conference page on here. So when you go onto the main site, you can click over here on the conference tab, and it'll take you to where you can keep an eye out for when registration opens. And right now it's open for sponsors. We can bring in sponsors. We can start looking at that piece. So if you guys are a part of an organization who is really loving what you're doing with PAC, get them to come on and join us for that conference piece. Be a sponsor. They get some airtime. They get a table, a virtual table / something else maybe. I guess we'll see where things go, but this is where they can go on and check that out. And of course, to find those certifications, you can go to that calendar tab. You can click straight on certifications, and that'll bring up all of the different certifications that are coming up. So you can find that one that fits what you're looking for. You can register for it and get all signed up and get your materials and get things ready to go, so that way, hopefully, you get into what you're looking for. You can also get, if you're looking for that little bite, you're wanting to try that out and just see what it's like to get a little piece of that. We really would love for you to join us on Fridays and sign up for those champion courses to get that little bite, to get that little piece and start from there to see where that might grow for you. So check it out on that www.teepasnow.com website. You can look for those pieces there, so that way you can get signed up for what's working for you or what you're looking for. Or if you're looking for that little bite, the champion course. And by the way, again, conference page, get your organizations to come and join us and be a sponsor.
Yeah, there are some great perks. So check out that sponsor page, because there are some great perks for being a sponsor of the conference. And the earlier you sign up, the more you get to take advantage of those opportunities. So check it out. And yes, we are going to be all virtual this year. it worked really well last year, and we know we want to be in person too. We cannot wait till we can be in person, and especially our extroverts among us, right? Cannot wait until we can be in person. I'm pointing to both of you. But yeah, this year, out of safety and precaution, and the slow rollout, we will be virtual, but it is going to be amazing. So hope to see you there. So think about that, save the date, and join us next week for another Straight Up Positive. Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
Stacy. Thanks, Jeanne. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Carrie.